Listo.
Do you want to put the intro, Josue?
¡Hijo de puta! ¡Hijo de puta!
Okay, comrades, welcome to this live. My name is Carlos. I'm a co-editor of ANTICONQUISTA. I'm also a member of Red Condor Collective. I'm here with my comrade, Esau Mendes, who's part of Red Condor Collective as well. And we're also here with Valentina and Sergio, who I'll introduce properly in a second. But before we do that, you know, probably the most important thing to say right now is that we just got word that Iwanduque, the president of Colombia, has just announced that they are taking back the proposed bill of the Reforma Tributaria, which is excellent news. But you know, as we were discussing before going live, it isn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean that the struggle ends there, or that people are going to go back to their houses and go back to normal. The situation, as we will discuss in more detail soon, will continue. Is going to continue to escalate because the conditions that people are living in Colombia, the poverty, unemployment, the crisis of the pandemic, which the government hasn't handled properly, is going to continue to oppress people's lives. And so this conversation is still relevant. And we can encourage people to not just listen to the conversation, but I think the point of this conversation is that we're going to see what we can do about the situation from here in the West, where many of us live. I just wanted to introduce Valentina, who is in Medellin, Colombia. Valentina Vargas, she's a Colombian, she's an activist and filmmaker. Her work is primarily focused on victims of state crimes and the implementation of the peace agreement. Sergio Arboleda is here with us as well. He's a human rights lawyer from the Corporación Jurídica Libertad and is a legal representative of victims of state crimes. And we also have, of course, my comrade Esau Mendes, academic and activist with Red Condor Collective, which is ANTICONQUISTA's sister organization. And before we go into the discussion, the conversation with the rest of the comrades here, we just wanted to give a quick, I guess, summary of the situation, the background of what's happening. And basically what it is that a few days ago, maybe a week ago, Iwanduque, or maybe a couple of weeks ago, I don't know, maybe the comrades in Colombia can tell us, Iwanduque announced that what they call a reforma tributaria, which in essence is basically the rising of taxes for millions of people, as well as taxing basic household products, which, obviously in the middle of a pandemic and also in the middle of an economic crisis that has been going on for years, is disastrous for the majority of people. This has also meant that foreign trade and foreign investors have, because of this announcement and because of the situation, are scared to invest in the country, taking money away from Colombia, which, as socialists, and there's a broader conversation as socialists and anti-imperialists is not necessarily a bad thing, but it does mean that For example, there's a fall in the Colombian peso, which then affects the lives of ordinary people as well. And so because of the announcement of this increase in taxes and the prices of basic household products, the people of Colombia, the majority of people in Colombia, millions, have been going out into the streets to protest. People that aren't necessarily political have been going out to protest. Activists have been leading, obviously, the front lines have been leading the fight. But this is a thing that's generalized in all of the community. You know, we're socialists, but you'll see and you'll probably know as Colombians that our families, I don't know about you guys, but you know, I have family who are, some of them unfortunately are Uribistas, but even the Uribistas have been out on the streets because this is an objectively bad situation for everyone. You know, the rising of prices of basic goods is going to affect everybody in the community. Also to mention, very important for us who are in the West, who live here, you know, we're Colombians, but we you know, we're forced to migrate to these countries because of the situation, whether we're politically repressed and persecuted, and that's the reason why we've had to leave, or because of the economic situation, which is tied to the political, exactly, to the political situation. So it's important for us to understand the role of the United States, of Europe in the situation, in the structural situation. And just to give just one example, the SMAD, the riot police that have been out on the streets killing people and repressing the protesters, have been trained by the United States military, and have been funded by the United States government. The military has been, I should say, and the UK government, where I am right now, have also played a part in training police and military in Colombia. So, you know,
I want to say something there, Carlos. The SMAT was created in Sergio 2002, el SMAT 2002 se creó.
Sí, aproximadamente 2002.
Yeah, in 2002, when Pastrana was president, and it was all in the framework of El Plan Colombia. Right. Plan Colombia was one of the worst things that could have happened to Colombia. And that was one of the things that Colombia needed to do in order to sign Plan Colombia, was to modernize their military forces and police forces. And that's why they had to create this map. And yeah, so the West really plays a big part in all of this context.
Exactly, yeah. And so, you know, that's important for us to know as people who live in the West, as Colombians who live in the West, or the allies and other Latin Americans who might be watching. You know, this is more than just an internal issue. This is an issue which is the global economy, and geopolitics plays a big part. Okay, so with that summarized, I just wanted to, you know, open up the conversation and maybe start off with Valentina and Sergio, who are in Colombia, in Medellin at the moment, and who can give us, you know, a bit more on the ground information of what's happening. And I guess one of the questions that we have is, we have information of dozens of people that have been killed. Is there an official figure of how many? And can you also tell us what you know about the protesters who have been arrested?
So I'm gonna say this for the people that are watching live. Sergio is gonna answer in Spanish, and then I'm gonna try to translate specifically what he's saying. Sergio, la primera pregunta sobre si tenemos información de las personas asesinadas, arrestadas, si hay una cifra oficial, y bueno, sí, esa es la primera pregunta.
Bueno, pues lo primero que hay que plantear es que la fuerza pública tiene una práctica que es ilegal y ilegítima, y en razón de ello se oculta la información. Entonces, la situación de los crímenes cometidos por la fuerza pública es compleja de que haya un consolidado inicial, Las organizaciones de derechos humanos tenemos que realizar un esfuerzo por documentar y hacer seguimiento a los casos de agresión y de violencia estatal, en el marco sobre todo de las
Déjame
protestas.
yo eso. So the public force have an illegal and illegitimate way of acting, and that's why they try to hide the information about crimes they've committed. That's why human rights organizations need to make efforts to document and keep an eye on cases of aggression and state violence.
Sin embargo, pues hemos tenido algunas cifras aproximadas. Por ejemplo, en el Valle de Aburrá, es decir, Medellín y ciudades cercanas, tenemos una cifra sin tener en cuenta el día de ayer, 343 agresiones por parte de la fuerza pública contra los manifestantes. De ellas, 207 son privaciones a la libertad. Hay 23 casos de tortura y estamos mirando también ante la posible ocurrencia de un caso de homicidio en uno de los barrios de Medellín.
Okay, so however, we have been able to document in the Aburrá Valley. Aburrá Valley is a sector that contains cities and municipalities like Medellin, Bello, Sabaneta, Envigado. We're documenting something about 343 attacks by security forces against protesters, of which 207 are deprivation of liberty and 23 cases of torture, and a possible case of homicide in one of Medellin neighborhoods that it's in a study right now.
Pero además tenemos algunas cifras de homicidios, por ejemplo, y es que las organizaciones que hacen seguimiento a la situación de derechos humanos en el marco de las protestas han advertido que, por ejemplo, el día de ayer, 1 de mayo, en los municipios de Madrid y La Calera del departamento de Cundinamarca se presentaron 3 homicidios en el marco de las protestas, y en el municipio de Ibagué del departamento de Tolima fueron asesinados 2 manifestantes.
Meanwhile, the organizations that are monitoring the human rights situations in the framework of the mobilizations have warned that on May 1st, so yesterday, in the municipalities of Madrid and La Calera, which are in the department of Cundinamarca, 3 homicides amid the social protests occurred. Meanwhile, in the municipality of Ibagué, in the department of Tolima, the security forces murdered 2 protesters.
Pero también en la ciudad de Cali y de Pereira se han reportado por lo menos 8 ejecuciones arbitrarias que están confirmadas, y hay 5 en proceso de confirmación. Evidentemente, pues ante estas situaciones hay un silencio por las autoridades de policía, civiles, judiciales y el sistema de medicina legal. Y adicional a esta situación, se han presentado por lo menos 24 lesionados en Cali y Pereira de gravedad, por lo menos 4 personas llevadas a cirugía, más de 200 heridos por munición química, cinética y aturdidora, y 4 actos de ejecución o desaparición forzada. Hay que también en esas cifras aclarar que hay 6 casos de violencia sexual, en su mayoría por personal o relacionado con el personal del SMAT o de la Fuerza de Antidisturbios, y por lo menos 122 detenciones arbitrarias.
So at least 8 arbitrary executions are reported in Pereira, and the information of at least 5 others are in the process of confirmation. Pereira is another city of Colombia. Since there has been like a fence of silence on the part of police and civil and judicial authorities and the legal medicine system. Additionally, 24 seriously injured, at least 4 people were taken to surgery, more than 200 injured by chemical, kinetic, and stun ammunition. So what the SMAT are supposed to shoot in a parabolic way, not directly at protesters, but we are seeing not only in these 4 days, but like since the beginning of SMAT, they have been shooting directly at protesters when they are supposed to do it in a parabolic way. And we have to make an emphasis that we are talking about another six cases of sexual violence, mostly associated with personnel of the SMAT that we talked earlier is the riot police, and at least 122 arbitrary arrests. So yes, that I think that's like the whole answer. And we also need to make another emphasis here that there's not only police and SMAT which are on the streets. We are seeing a militarized country, and we're seeing the special operation group, which is called the GOES. And we also have witnessed all throughout the country how how the public force is pairing up with armed civilians that we know are members of paramilitary structures. So yeah.
Valentina and Sergio, I just wanted to ask, because Medellin, Pereira, these are places that are usually, of course, there's resistance movements everywhere in the country, but these are usually cities and regions that are, Antioquia in general is usually known as being conservative, quite conservative, and quite uribista, as Colombians would say, which is another word for really like right wing and conservative.
Yeah.
And in these protests, we've seen that actually Medellin, Pereira, and Cali, which is obviously in another region, but that isn't necessarily historically a place like Bogota where like things pop off. Why is Medellin and Pereira different this time? What is it like on the ground? What's different from other times when there have been protests?
Okay, I'm going to start answering that first part, so then we can go to Sergio, who can answer what it's like to be on the ground. Medellin and Pereira, and a lot of cities that have had like a historically Uribista tradition, conservative tradition. I think that's changing because the discomfort is generalized, and the people that we see on this protest are young people. And even though we have in Medellin a lot of young people that call themselves Uribistas, even as you said earlier, we were talking about that, even people that have been Uribistas since Uribe was a governor in Antioquia, they are now like backing up. I don't know if I can say that they are opening their eyes, if that's really utopic to say, but hopefully that's one of the reasons. But we are in the middle of a pandemic, and Colombian people have been suffering a lot from the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think that people are fed up. That's like the main reason. And like we said earlier, maybe there's not a lot of sadly, there's not a lot of political movement on the mobilizations, but at the same time, the rage, it's real. People are hungry. Colombia is a country where the majority of people live in the informality regarding the jobs and work. I mean, they don't have like a stable job. They have to work day by day to make ends meet. And with all the lockdowns and everything that's been going on because of the pandemic, people are finally realizing that maybe that middle class doesn't exist. That they have been living like in this kind of fantasy, because sadly, for example, in Medellin, there's a lot of middle class people that defended Álvaro Uribe, because they thought that maybe they lived in this fantasy that maybe they belong to that sector of the population that he represented. But now I'm gonna say this, and I don't want to sound stupid, but thank you to the pandemic, people are finally realizing that there's not middle class. So yeah, so all of that to maybe and so we can answer the question about what it's like being on the ground. Sergio, ¿cómo es estar en la calle? Si se siente que hay algo diferente, pues con todas las movilizaciones.
Bueno, pues el descontento o el inconformismo generalizado en todo el país. Y estamos presenciando también una movilización que es masiva, que incluso para la población o para el pueblo representa la única salida en este momento para sobrevivir. para la gente es o el COVID o el hambre o la policía.
Let me, Sergio, déjame yo. The indignation of the Colombian people is generalized. They feel that there are no longer alternatives to live. And people feel like their cause of death, it's either going to be COVID, hunger, or maybe police violence. So that's why they resort to the streets. Yeah.
Y ante esta situación, la gente decide salir a marchar sin tener otra alternativa e incluso mueren por estas movilizaciones, por salir a las calles a reivindicar sus derechos. Pero del otro lado, estamos ante un Estado que muestra sus dos caras cuando es necesario. Por un lado, el discurso democrático, pero por el otro, la represión y la violencia estatal.
So yeah, people feel that they need to go out, and we are against government and a state, because this is not about government that goes for 4 years and then changes. No, this is a state policy. We see a state with two faces. One is the democratic face, and the other one is the repression face of the state. Yeah.
Y hay que recordar que Colombia ya ha vivido el exterminio de dos movimientos políticos de oposición, y este exterminio se ha dado a partir de asesinatos, masacres, desaparición forzada, torturas.
And we have to remember, and this is really important, not only for the Colombian people, but for the people outside, people abroad. Colombia, we have to remember that here we had two political left movements that have been already exterminated to assassinations, massacres, and forced disappearance.
Sin embargo, la gente decide salir a pesar de tener enfrente a un Estado asesino. Y lo que le ofrece es esto, lo que le ofrece es represión, asesinatos. Hay que recordar que ya pasamos también el año pasado por un episodio similar en la ciudad de Bogotá, el 10 de septiembre. Hasta ese momento habían 39 personas asesinadas durante el periodo de la pandemia, en el marco de las movilizaciones. Es decir, que la cifra aumentó el 10 de septiembre y hoy creo que las cifras aumentan muchísimo más.
And we need to, even though we are living in with a government that still it's a murder government and state, people are still going to the streets, and we have to remember that this is not the first time in the pandemic that people went out to the streets. Last year on September and November, people went out, people mobilized, and there were about 39 people murdered in those mobilizations. So now with what happened yesterday, we can say that the death toll is going up. It's just going up.
Y en ese sentido, entonces, evidentemente hay lo que planteamos ahora, indignación generalizada, pero también un Estado que puede ir hasta las últimas consecuencias para reprimir esas expresiones de alternativas y de salidas a la crisis que vive Colombia ante un Estado ilegítimo.
So in that sense, there's a generalized discomfort, and people will do anything, but at the same time, the government, the state, will do anything also to repress those kind of, I don't know how to say this, how he said it, but to repress the way that people are showing their discomfort. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, comrades, for that. Before moving on to another question that I wanted to pose to you guys, I just want to quickly say that first of all, to update people that have just joined, and to say that the president of Colombia has announced that they're withdrawing the bill that started the whole chaos, that started the protest, the uprising of the people, the just, I would say, I would add the just and dignified and principled uprising of the people. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the end of the protest. It doesn't mean that it's the end of the situation.
Hopefully not.
No, you know, as long as people in Colombia continue under this government, I'm sure, you know, the resistance will continue, if not in the streets, in you know, in activist circles and you know, the progressive circles that want the transformation of society and of the country. And I also want to add that if you can see on the screen, at the bottom of the screen, there should be a support Colombian activist. It's the link to our GoFundMe, the Red Condor Collective GoFundMe, where people can go and donate, please. Up until now, we've raised about $300, which is good, but we need more. You know, we need money to send to. We were talking at the beginning of this that many of us Colombians live abroad. We live thousands of miles away from our mother country, and the least we could do for the protests and for the situation is to lend our material support to the protesters. So please do donate to our GoFundMe. Next, I wanted to ask all of you, and starting with Esaú, you know, what do you think, as students of Colombian history? There's been other you know, historical situations where riots and uprisings like these happen. The Bogotazo, for example, when Gaitan was killed, there was a big uprising, which is very similar to what's happening now. Or even in other countries like Venezuela, we have the Caracazo in 1989, which triggered the progressive revolution of Hugo Chavez and others. Yeah, basically, how is this different? How is this the same? Can it be said that, oh, and one of the criticisms that there are of the Bogotazo is that that there wasn't any coordination, that activists and the leftist movement wasn't organized. There wasn't a progressive party to take the protest to another level, to an alternative to the government. Do we have this in Colombia right now? Is there an alternative movement, party to take the reign of the situation?
Well, one of the things that I'm seeing that's obviously different is the modernization, not only of the repression, because like in the Bogotazo, you see a lot of police forces and chulavitas and different paramilitary forces that weren't modernized, but were still mobilized against the resistance of the people. Today, we have El ESMAD that, as Valentina was telling us, has been developed through cooperation with the US and has been modernized to affect the resistance and to also hide the way it's being so repressive and so disgusting to its own populace. But on the other side of the coin, we also see how the media is no longer being able to fully be controlled as it was before. So back in the day, you only had really El Tiempo, you had different newspapers. Of course, you had more socialist newspapers as well, but they weren't as big as these huge newspapers owned by the political families. And today, RCN, Caracol, those are all companies that are owned by the super wealthy of Colombia, the mega rich of Colombia. And if you see RCN and Caracol, you're going to see a completely different image of what's going on in Colombia right now than if you see some social media activists or the activists that are on the street showing what's really happening. I was seeing RCN saying that there was a big mobilization in Cali, in Puerto Rellena and Puerto Resistencia, where RCN was saying, oh, look, they're celebrating how Iwanduque has changed the reform, but that's not at all what was happening. And also in Caracol, they were also talking with the El Defensor del Pueblo in Cali, saying that there was only one person that had been injured by the police. And we know that's not true, but now the social media really is kind of giving us this ability to fight back, not only in the streets, but also from abroad, able to share the media of what's going on. And if it wasn't for this social media, a lot of people would not be hearing about this. My grandma upstairs, she doesn't really know what's going on. All she knows is I gotta wait for the news to tell me what's happening. So now that we're connected, I think that's one of the things that's changed. But I fear that in Colombia, though there is a movement to try to change the government. I don't know if there's really this huge big organization that can like direct the mobilizations right now. I know the mobilizations were kind of called in by different sindicatos, different unions, and different movements from around the country. But right now, it's not just the union members. It's not just the sindicatos or all the movements. It's people that are fed up with what's going on in Colombia. It's not just a really organized mobilization. It's really just a popular uprising or a popular kind of rebellion against what's really going on in Colombia.
For sure, yeah. Thank you for that, Saul. Yeah, the situation and is different, obviously, because of the technology that we have nowadays. Like as you were saying, Saul, like this social media is playing a huge part, and for us here in the West, who are so far away, but we can see the differences between what's being said on the news and the mainstream news and what's being showed to us in the pictures and in social media from our families and other pages. Valentina, what do you think about that?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I feel that, yes, definitely thanks to social media and people making lives while they are on the streets, we have like the ways to know what's going on and maybe to not stop police violence, but maybe like put an eye on it. But at the same time, I feel that we don't have enough political education. And for me, it's beautiful, 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 completely beautiful that people are out on the streets. And this is a popular revolt. But at the same time, it feels kind of sad that it's only going to stay there because we don't have like a way, like a concrete path that we can follow so we can know what to do. Sergio and I were talking the day before yesterday, and we were like, okay, so imagine if we go to La Casa de Nariño and we burn everything and we make them run or whatever. What to do next? Do we have a platform? Do we have a political line to follow? Do even people, because then another sad thing is that people that are out on the streets because of the general discomfort on politics overall, not only right, but also left, they have sayings like, oh, we're not on the left, we're not on the right, we're just people that want to do something different. And that's, I mean, it's beautiful to see them out on the streets, but at the same time, it's sad to see that they have like this apolitical way of thinking, that they think that the left is something bad. And I don't blame them, because
that's part of our oppression as a people.
Exactly.
Our ignorance isn't an inherent or organic ignorance. Our ignorance is because it's imposed.
But at the same time, Carlos, we have to acknowledge that the left here in Colombia have, they haven't even helped, because we don't, we are a left that fights amongst their members. We don't have like a unity. We prefer to make alliances with people from the right sector than with people from the left, because there's like this need of protagonism, and that's why people are fed up with politics overall, left, right, and we need to find ways to educate them, because I don't want to sound, because I feel that that's even like the problem that I have with the word empower people. No, I mean, we don't need to empower no one, but we need to find ways for people to see that this is something about the left and the right. It is. This is the economic and the political are all together. And as I say, and because I'm a hardcore feminist, the personal is political. So everything you do, it's a political statement. So how do we try to, I don't know if the words teach, but how do we teach people out on the streets that this needs to have a political framework. So so for me, I mean, it's beautiful what's going on, but I don't know what's going to happen. I don't feel that we have like the, las bases. How do you say las bases? Como las
Foundations.
The foundations. Yeah, sorry. I don't think we have the foundations to do something more than maybe be out on the streets.
Just to add to that, and maybe take it to Sergio to see what he thinks. For those of us living abroad, figures, or I guess political personalities like Gustavo Petro, Colombia Humana, who are like the more progressive, mainstream. I guess you could say that Petro is quite mainstream, though in constant clashes with the right wing.
Yeah.
And I personally think that we do need to support that progressiveness, because it's what exists, and maybe the next year's election, maybe that's what's needed as a first step towards something more radical. But just to, I guess, from a socialist point of view and a more long-term point of view, I would say, or some of us at Red Condor would say that it's quite limited, isn't it? It's quite a liberal. It doesn't really go to the structural roots of capitalism. It doesn't really, if you examine his proposals or Colombia Humana's proposals, they don't really examine Colombia's position in the global economy as a dependent economy, one that depends on the West for its production cycle, and for anyway, basically it isn't what they're calling for is like a friendlier capitalism.
Yeah, he even said something like that on Twitter. He even said that he was trying to accomplish a progressive capitalism, like the biggest oxymoron you can even like.
And one perfect example of that, Valentina,
capitalism. It's like, what? Yeah,
exactly. And one perfect example of that was his proposal of the aguacate.
Oh yeah.
The aguacate is like producing avocado as a way to move away from the oil industry and not become like Venezuela. And we can produce avocados, but for who? For Europe, for the United States, and
to export.
And then it doesn't really change the economy. It doesn't change the fact that we're a dependent economy, and that it's going to impoverish our people same way as it is today. And aguacate has in Mexico, they've tried it already, and what has it produced? More violence, because the mafia and the narco gangs hijack the industry. More exploitation of the workers, because if you're going to be producing aguacate to such an extent that is going to prop up the economy, it's going to need more exploitation of the workers. So yeah, it just doesn't make sense really. But as I said before.
No, that I was gonna say that. But if he's the presidential candidate for next year, we have to vote for him. Because it's either him or the one that Uribe is gonna impose all over again. So for us,
it's like with him, it's like it might be like a short-term solution, but it's, as those of us who want to transform the country completely so that these events don't happen again, so that people are really living in a dignified way, it needs to be a long-term solution, which is socialism. And it doesn't have to be a copy of I know people are scared of Venezuelan socialism and Cuban socialism. It doesn't have to be a copy of it, though I would say I do support Venezuelan and Cuban socialism myself. But we don't have to talk about those socialism. We can talk about Colombian socialism and what it could look like. And it's a matter of us. I would call myself young, as young people who need to take the reign, and who need to do something about the situation. But yeah, sorry, can you ask Sergio what he feels?
Sí. Sergio, lo que estábamos hablando, y es lo que veníamos hablando nosotros estos días, que ven estas protestas las ven como algo muy similar al Bogotazo. Y una de las críticas que se dio en ese momento es que no había la adecuada coordinación para llevar al levantamiento para llevar ese levantamiento del pueblo como una revolución. Y que si creemos que esto es algo parecido, que si hay una alternativa de gobierno coherente y adecuada, o qué está pasando con estas protestas.
Bueno, pues yo creo que hay una ausencia de referentes también, generalizado. Y ahora, pues ustedes lo han planteado, la figura de Gustavo Petro genera como una especie de alternativa desde esos proyectos de gobierno diferentes, pero digamos que la estructura del Estado colombiano está diseñada para que ningún gobierno progresista o alternativo pueda gobernar de manera tranquila.
Okay, so let me stop you there. We need to talk that in Colombia we don't have we have an absence of reference, like political reference, and we now see Gustavo Petro maybe like as a way to do something different, but at the same time we need to acknowledge that the structure in the political the structure that how Colombia is conformed in the political and judicial way, it's built so people, if maybe a president like a leftist president could get into power, the structure that Colombia is built upon, it's not gonna let him go too far, regarding politics.
Sin embargo, pues muchísima gente en Colombia hoy le apuestan a ese proyecto de la Colombia humana, porque lo consideran una alternativa en lo que hay hoy. Sin embargo, pues hay un antecedente de la alcaldía de Gustavo Petro en Bogotá, y ya vieron ustedes que por medios regulares o irregulares obstaculizaron todo lo que podían para que él no siguiera gobernando.
Okay, so however, people are eager to vote for the Colombia Humana, which is Gustavo Petro's political party. But at the same time, when he was a mayor in Bogota, we saw how those political structures, in a legal way, got rid of him, Sergio.
Pero lo importante aquí es que estos proyectos políticos no pueden darse desde una perspectiva de una figura, sin haber un trabajo de base. Y aquí hemos experimentado un sinnúmero de movilizaciones, levantamientos espontáneos por parte del pueblo, pero que se limitan a las coyunturas, dado que no hay un trabajo de base con unos referentes políticos que dirijan esto a algunas transformaciones profundas, y por ende entonces sea la reiteración o la cadena de movilizaciones, asesinatos, desapariciones, el olvido, porque además nos imponen una memoria, y repetir nuevamente, levantarse, movilizarse y otra vez la victimización, pero no hay un trabajo de base que permita esas transformaciones profundas.
Okay, so for us, it is necessary to generate conditions for the people that have led this mobilization, have political reference of what we can do to generate maybe agreements between political sectors to have clarity about the future of this content and uprising of the Colombian people. We already lived similar experiences in the past, and the memory of our country is silenced or imposed. Even Carlos was talking about that, how the ignorance is imposed. The same thing happened with memory. And that deprives people of achieving a real change in our country. And at the same time, Sergio said at the beginning of the sentence that we cannot have a political party or a political movement with protagonist, like an only figure It cannot be like that, and it has been like that. Sadly, it has been like that. Yeah, Sergio.
Okay.
Dejaría hasta ahí.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And you know, not to paint a completely negative picture. And one of the things I did, which is valid. You know, I think what you guys have been saying, and I guess what we have all been saying here is that, you know, there is a sense of well, it is in a sense. It's a reality that the Colombian left is quite fractured. There isn't a coherent or a proper alternative that people can turn to. But that doesn't mean that there aren't seeds or there aren't movements or parties or even thinkers, individual thinkers, or maybe school of thought in Colombia who do have alternatives, who are fighting, who are not just fighting when these protests erupt, but who are fighting constantly. You know, and these are numerous organizations, parties, movements of people of different persuasions, you know, different political persuasions, different political ideologies. And so, you know, just to reiterate, and I guess for us who live in the West, there's organizations like ourselves who do as much as we can. You know, we do as much as we can. We raise money to send back home to those movements who are doing the work. We meet up to study the situation. We have study groups who that we have been developing as Red Condor. So there are, you know, there are things to do, and I would encourage people to look those up. You know, we're not asking people to just join us as Red Condor. We're not a church. We encourage people to join whoever they can and want. You know, whatever calls their attention.
No, because even Carlos, I'm sorry, but yeah, we have to make that clear. We're not saying that there's no hope here in Colombia. It is, and it's in the grassroots movements. It's not, maybe sadly, it's not in a political party for now, but you can see in the barrios how those grassroots movements are there and they are resisting, and it's beautiful to see that.
Yeah, and I would also say that even a movement like Colombia Humana, which is, you know, for us is quite liberal. You know, it doesn't really go to the structural roots, but I think it's important for those of us in the West, Colombians and non-Colombians, who are interested in transformation of the conditions in Colombia to, you know, we have a year to the elections, and it's important to us to get involved in supporting Colombia Man in whatever way we can, not because we necessarily agree with all of their politics or that we think that they're going to come into power and change and, you know, make Colombia paradise. You know, it's unlikely. Hopefully, but it's unlikely. But we do encourage people to support Colombia Mana so that we at least have some kind of a first
dignity
step.
And dignity. Yeah.
At least some first step towards making the conditions, I guess, a little bit better for future more radical revolution.
Or even see, because I'm sorry, because Francia Marquez, she's a Black leader here in Colombia. She's been doing all this grassroots organization work long before a lot of people, and she's thinking about being a presidential candidate. So that's another person to look up to. So yeah,
for sure. Francia Marquez, right?
Yeah,
Francia Marquez. Yeah, she's known for her, I think she won some kind of prize for her environmental work, but obviously she's more than that. You know, she's running for presidency. So yeah, we should definitely support her too. And I'm guessing they're gonna have some kind of hopefully some coalition with the other progressive movements and parties and stuff. One other thing that I wanted to ask you guys is that we the way mainstream media in Colombia and worldwide is narrating the protests in Colombia is that the usual thing of the violence, the clashes between the protesters and the police in a very decontextualized way, and we saw that Maluma, which it's ridiculous, it's silly,
Yes.
but unfortunately a person like Maluma is like a representative, very unfortunate, because it's not a very good representative for Colombian people. But unfortunately, the reality is that he is a representative for Colombians internationally. And he came on his Instagram live to say, in a sad way, like, oh yeah, I'm opposed to the reform, to the reforma tributaria, but these protesters coming out and violence and using violence against the police and all of this spiel, which is bullshit. Obviously. And then also there's a criticism of other celebrities, not just Maluma, but J Balvin, who have all come out now today to say, yeah, we're against it because of the pressure,
of course,
of the people saying, what the hell do you have to say about this? Because they're very quick to come on TV and news and everywhere to denounce the Venezuelan government.
Exactly. I was gonna say that, yeah.
But they took a very long time, and only when the people were pressing them, like, what the hell do you have to say about this, is when they came out and actually showed support, which is too little too late. but what do you guys think?
And with a really pleasant discourse, it's like if it was Venezuela, they will be condemning the atrocities, and they will be celebrating the people on the streets and the people fighting against the police and against the army. But because it's their country, they just stay quiet. And the thing that I hate most about the situation, I mean, it's sad that people need the representation, or like they need the statement from J Balvin, Maluma, Shakira, Karol G, or whatever. But at the same time, it's like they need it because they became famous because of this character and persona of the people from the barrio, of the people from Colombia, from the bottom. Now we are here, blah, blah, blah. We know, well, I know the struggle. And then it's like, I mean, and all of this performative activism with Black Lives Matter that they had, because we saw Maluma and J Balvin and Karol G talking about Black Lives Matter, with all that passion, and they had to do it because now they're not in Medellin anymore. They're up in Miami, making millions or whatever. So now they know that their public is not people from Colombia, but people from the States. So they have to talk about Black Lives Matter. But they don't talk about the things here. And I mean, we don't need their representation, but at the same time, it's like, well, you're portraying, this character of the people, especially J Balvin and Maluma, who think that they are from the barrio or whatever, but now they're not supporting the people that they should be supporting. And J Balvin was in an interview with Vicky Davila, which is I don't want this taken down, but Vicky Davila is one of the worst journalists that we have in Colombia. And like a couple of months ago, they were in an interview, and they had like this section of the interview where she would say any name, and J Balvin was supposed to say like the first word that came to his mind. So she said Iwanduque, and he said, oh, he's a bacán, which means like a cool guy, and then she said Álvaro Uribe, and he said a bacán also, a cool guy. And it's like, a cool guy. And
nobody from the hood thinks that.
Exactly. and then with the elections, when Iwanduque became president, Maluma has a video on his Instagram. He's on his private jet. People from the hood don't have private jets, but yeah, he's in the private jet celebrating because Iwanduque is the president. So, I mean, it's still sad that people don't know why. People are like, oh, why haven't they talked or say anything? Like, what do you mean why? It's like they don't need to say anything because they feel represented by this. But like I said, if this was Venezuela, they will be organizing a concert like they did with Juanes and Carlos Vives and all of them, but they just don't care. I mean, they don't feel represented by this. And I don't feel that we need their representation either. So yeah, they can stay in the bubble, in their private jets and in their resorts and whatever. We don't need them.
For sure, yeah. I would add that, you know, they say they support now, they support the people, and we would encourage people who are listening, watching us, our followers at Anticonquista and Red Condor to maybe send them the link to our GoFundMe and see how much they're going to support the people on the ground. You know, put their words in their pockets, so to speak. Do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I was thinking exactly about kind of like Venezuela, what you're hearing about how, Colombia, if we vote for Petro, we're going to turn into a Venezuela or whatever. And it's kind of like thinking about, well, what does Colombia have right now? Colombia has like almost a quarter of its population unemployed or really underemployed under informal circumstances. And it's like, what really is what's being feared by the Colombian population. And what I think it goes back to is this control of the information that is had by the elites in Colombia, where RCN, Caracol, and all these huge outlets dominate what's being said. And the one thing that we can kind of do is really push back with our own way of doing our narratives, which is social media and informing others, trying to educate others, as Valentina said, trying to like do a huge political education to try to really wake up not only people in Colombia, but also people in the diaspora with our family at home, that we can also talk to them and talk to them about what we're seeing, other than just RCN and Caracol to dominate that narrative.
Awesome, yeah. Valentina, do you want to ask Sergio if he's got anything on that particular topic?
Sí. Sergio, sobre incluso lo que habíamos hablado, esa manera en que los medios están mostrando la movilización, ¿cierto? Y eso, y juntarlo como qué se puede hacer desde las personas que están afuera. Ellos cómo también pueden colaborar a la situación aquí en Colombia.
Bueno, los medios obviamente tienen unos intereses políticos. No es gratuito lo que ustedes mencionan ahora de RCN y Caracol, que desinforman, muestran un mensaje que no es acorde a lo que está ocurriendo en realidad. Históricamente lo hemos vivido, y van posicionándolo en un relato, un discurso o conceptos que se van insertando en la cabeza de la gente. Ese tema del terrorismo o el que marcha es terrorista, o lo que han utilizado esta última vez, los vándalos que ejercen violencia. Y por ejemplo, si ustedes ven a Maluma dice en su discurso bacán, muchachos, así no es, no vándalos. Entonces, claro, y cuando uno empieza a escuchar a la gente cotidianamente, ya se empieza a meter el vándalo.
Espérate, Sergio, yo traduzco todo eso. Okay, so basically he's saying that we have a discourse that it's imposed on us, thanks to RCN, Caracol, which are the mainstream media here that we have here in Colombia, and it's a discourse that's been imposed with them with things like terrorism or now vandals, because when and Sergio didn't say this, but I'm gonna add it real quick. When we had FARC, we saw how the media used the word terrorist, or terrorism. But now we don't have FARC, so the word is vandals. That's what Sergio said. Now in the media, and even Maluma in his IG live, he was like, "Oh man, don't be vandals," blah blah blah. So yeah, Sergio.
Y entonces ya es algo que empieza a reiterarse dentro de la población, dentro de los medios de comunicación, pero entonces el llamado o la reflexión es, bueno, vamos a hablar de violencia y la proporcionalidad de la misma. Violencia en un país donde han desaparecido más de 80.000 personas, violencia en un país donde han exterminado 2 partidos políticos por pensar diferente, violencia en un país donde han ejecutado extrajudicialmente a 6.402 personas.
Okay, Sergio.
Sí.
So we have to talk about proportions. People are saying that people on the streets are violent, and that's a thing that stays on people's minds. You know, people think, oh yeah, they're violent, but let's talk about real violence. Let's talk about violence in a country that has about 85,000 people that have been disappeared. Let's talk about violence in a country where we have more than 6,000 people that were executed in an extrajudicial way, or what we call los falsos positivos, false positives. For the people that are watching that don't know what this is, it's civilians, innocent people that were killed, and then they were passed like guerrillas that were killed on combat. And they put the uniforms and the arms next to them, and yeah, those are the false positive. And so let's talk about violence in a country that has all of these systematic human rights violations. That's violence, Sergio.
El cuestionamiento entonces es quiénes son los terroristas o quiénes son los vándalos, si esos que han cometido todos esos crímenes o un chico que en medio de su rabia, de su indignación ejerce algún tipo de fuerza, de destrucción contra un banco, contra un establecimiento de comercio de cadena que representa para él unos intereses que lo han dejado en la pobreza, en la desigualdad y que no tiene otra forma de responder que esa. Y además los bancos que han expropiado, que han dejado tanta gente en la pobreza y que ellos simbólicamente significa desigualdad, hambre, hambruna y pocas garantías para una vida digna.
So we talk about violence. So violence it's violence, a government and a state that has committed human rights violations, that systematically abuses people, or is it violence, a young guy that it's out on the street, maybe destroying, I don't know, a bank, you know, not even destroying the bank, but the wall of a bank. And what are the banks here in Colombia, and I think worldwide? Banks, they're taking people's property, and they're taking what little people have here in Colombia. So what is violence? What is really violence?
Y para estas figuras públicas que son creadas incluso por la clase pues, que gobierna en Colombia y que sus discursos son mediados y determinados por esta clase, también son figuras manipulables para legitimar el gobierno vecino, sin tener idea incluso de lo que está sucediendo allá, pero son indiferentes frente a la situación que se vive en nuestro país.
So public figures like Maluma or these celebrities are like puppets of the media, and they serve to propagate this message of disinformation regarding the situation in Venezuela. But at the same time, they don't even do anything or say anything about the situation here. But that's why, like, that's how they should operate. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised about that, because that's the reality.
Bueno, y por otro lado, pues seguimos nosotros también reconociendo y defendiendo ese derecho a rebelarse contra unas condiciones injustas en medio de un Estado antidemocrático y que implementa medidas que no representan los derechos fundamentales de la población.
But on the other side, we are all for the right to rebel against a government and a state that violates and abuses, and it's still it's still repressing people. But yeah, we still feel that it's our right to rebel against a state and a government like this.
Y de otro lado, las personas que no se encuentran en el territorio nacional, para nosotros es muy importante visibilizar las denuncias, generar redes de apoyo, redes de multiplicación de los mensajes, de las reivindicaciones, o incluso de exigirle a sus gobernantes que se pronuncien frente a lo que está sucediendo en Colombia, por ejemplo, porque evidentemente esta violencia cuenta con una complicidad por parte de los gobernantes de otros países y otras regiones, cosa que no podemos decir lo mismo del gobierno venezolano, que sí tuvo toda una arremetida de los gobiernos latinoamericanos, del norteamericano e incluso de la Unión Europea.
So, and on the other side, we still feel that for the people abroad, people that are in Colombia, we need to create networks. We need to create a support system so you guys can share the things that are happening here, all the denouncers that we are creating on site. And at the same time, you guys abroad, folks abroad, need to demand to your governments to say something about the situation, the same way they did it with the Venezuelan conflict, because they were fast to say a lot of things. And I'm sorry, this is my personal opinion right here, a lot of bullshit about Venezuela, but I'm sure Sergio thinks the same thing. But yeah, and with the Colombian situation, they're just quiet. So we saw how people in North America and even in Latin America and the European Union were quick to judge and to ask for militarization of Venezuela. But here in Colombia, they're just quiet. So what folks can do abroad, it's material support is necessary, of course, but at the same time share what the information that we have here, and demand your local government to say something, to pronounce, to say something about the situation here in Colombia.
Dejarías ahí mi respuesta.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Sergio. You know, and I would re-emphasize what Sergio was saying about violence, you know, and I'd like to, like, you know, talk about, like, for example, what happens in the West here with the Black Lives Matter movement. When some people, you know, conservative and right-wing, I guess, minded people look at the protests in the US when it pops off, when the people have had enough of the killings, and they protest and they smash windows and they loot big stores, and it's portrayed in the media like, oh my God, look what these guys are doing, or some people have the view that, you know, they focus on what the protesters are doing rather than the structure, like why are they doing that in the first place? You know, it's a legitimate response to an extreme violent situation, and it's the same in Colombia. You know, the people responding with setting police motorcycles on fire is legitimate in the context. Looting and whatever else they do at the protest is legitimate in the context of the situation. And then going back to what we can do in the West, in just the course of our time here in this live, we've managed to raise about a bit more than £100, which is I'm not quite sure how much that is in dollars, maybe $150 or more, because the pound is stronger. So far we've raised about I think it's nearly $500. So you know, that's one of the very important things that we could do right now to show tangible support to these comrades like Valentina and Sergio and others who are doing the work on the ground, is to send them money. You know, where that's the least we could do as a diaspora, is the least we can do as Colombians living abroad.
And if people don't feel, because I mean, there's everything. If people don't feel that they want to send money, send medical supplies.
Right.
It might take longer, the shipping, but I mean, we need those things.
Right. And I would add as well, you know, we're obviously advertising our GoFundMe as an organization, but you know, there's so many other organizations. I know Valentina in her social media page has been advertising them, mutual aid groups who are doing work on the ground. You know, go to Valentina's page. Maybe you could tell us your ad after, and just look out for mutual aid groups in Colombia who are doing work, or even other Western groups who are doing work here where I live in the UK. There's Justice for Colombia who do a lot of good work in terms of the protests and stuff. So you know, not just, you don't have to donate to us. You can donate to so many other groups, and if you do donate to us, as we have been doing for the last year. We've raised over $10,000 to send back to groups in Colombia who are on the front line of the struggle against this oppressive government. Groups like Ciudad en Movimiento, Juco, some ex-combatants of the FARC that we've helped with their opening up of a place called La Casa de la Paz in Bogota. We sent them a few $1,000s in support so they can, this is a space where people, they're doing like developing a business of a craft beer thing, but it isn't just a business. It's a organization where people can come together, talk about politics, organize cooperativa, and people, and obviously the ex-combatants are going to be living off what they make. But these are activists. They're not just doing it for business or to get rich or anything like that. They're doing it because they're organizers, they're activists.
And I think this is another subject, maybe for another live stream. But the situation with the ex-combatants is really hard. They signed the peace and now they're killing them. So it's something that we also need to be aware of.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. And I would say, like, these are people who have given their entire lives to, whether you agree or not with their ideological stance, these are people who have given their entire lives to try and transform society, to transform our country. And they've been completely neglected by the state, not just neglected, but attacked by paramilitary forces who were connected to the state and killed off, as if they weren't Colombians too. So there's people, there's ex-combatants, there's so many groups that we could support tangibly, concretely, rather than just talking about it, which is what we're doing here, but with that in mind. Esaú, do you want to add something?
Well, yeah, I was just going to talk about how even in these last few days with the paro still going on, there's been still murders of ex-combatants, of organizers out in el campo. And so that's not stopping. So there's really no reason why the resistance or why these uprisings should really stop happening. All of the injustices that the government has put in place before will do it again. And this reforma tributaria, I'm sure, will come back with another different name. It's just going to take some time until people stop thinking about it, and then it's going to come back. So
yeah, exactly. And people don't stop thinking about it. There's activists like Valentina, Sergio, and ourselves who are doing this all the time. It's not just about taking advantage of a protest that's happened. It's about something that a lot of us work for every day. So yeah, if you guys are interested in what we're saying, if you're in the West, in the United States or the UK or Europe or wherever, feel free to hit us up as Red Condor or Anticonquista to help out, or hit up Valentina and Sergio and other people who are doing work on the ground, directly on the ground. But yeah, I think we've covered a lot. I think we've done a good job, if I say so myself, of summarizing and kind of giving some kind of background and also on the ground information of what's happening in Colombia right now. But yeah, I'll let Valentina, Sergio, and Esaú maybe just finish with whatever you guys want to add.
Okay. Keep eyes on Colombia. I think that's it. People are struggling, whether it's with La Reforma Tributaria or whatever. People are struggling here, and just keep an eye on Colombia. And yeah, that's it. And English is not my first language, so I'm sorry if I was a little.
No, it was great, Valentina. English is not my first language, but I can't talk proper English or proper Spanish. So
same.
Y Sergio, que si quieres decir algo como para concluir.
No, que pues la solidaridad aquí creo que es la que logra las verdaderas transformaciones en cualquier territorio del mundo, y yo creo que en la medida en que nos juntemos construiremos no solamente un país mejor, sino un continente y un mundo mejor.
Yeah, so he says that solidarity is what can help us, and all, like, being all together, it's what we need to not only create a better country, but a better continent and a better world. Yeah.
And then I was gonna say, really for anybody, just try to get educated as to what's going on right now, what has happened in the past in Colombia, because as Valentina said, that's something that particularly in Colombia, nuestra memoria and our memory is really kind of lost in a sense. And all these massacres that have happened before are going to continue to happen unless we really do something about it. So part of doing something about it is really getting educated and really trying to get organized so that we can actually affect some change in Colombia.
Okay, awesome, comrades. Just the last thing, to remind people, if you want to help out tangibly, you can go to Red Condor's social media, Red Condor Collective on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. If you go to our bios, there's links to the GoFundMe. And yeah, thank you, comrades, for coming on today and for enlightening us of what's happening on the ground, and also your perspectives, your political perspectives, which the mainstream media doesn't show. But thank you very much, comrades, and hopefully we can have another conversation soon. Muchas gracias, Sergio.
Gracias.
Gracias.
No, muchas gracias.
Bueno, que estén bien. Chao.
Estén bien.
Igualmente,
Chao.
chao, un abrazo.